Okay, so this is a video on Avatar Fire and Ash where I want to talk about three different things. The first is the reception to this movie. The second is my spoiler-filled thoughts. The third is what I want from Avatars 4 and 5. And this video will have spoilers, so there's your warning. But let's begin by talking about the reception, and people do seem to like it. Like, it has an A on CinemaScore, which is very good, and on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 91% from the audience, but it has a 68% from the critics, which makes it the worst reviewed one. Now, I have watched and read plenty of reviews, and the common problem seems to be that people think it's a rehash of Way of Water. And I just don't agree. Like, it's important to keep in mind that this is, like, Avatar The Way of Water and Avatar Fire and Ash were originally one movie before they got split into two. So this does feel like a proper continuation, and with that said, yes, Courage is still looking for the Sully family, and yes, we get more of the Tolkien stuff here, because all of that stuff was set up in the previous one. But I feel like they did new and exciting things with those elements, but there's some moments where I can understand. Like, throughout Way of Water, Lorak is trying to do something different. He gets shamed for it, and Jake kind of gives him hell. That happens again here, but it builds to Lorak's character arc where he eventually stands up for himself and makes a huge difference. You've also got some characters getting captured, but it just kind of makes sense. Like, it's kind of the point that the kids put the parents in a fragile position, and Spider and Jake getting captured is such a pivotal point where it doesn't feel like a rehash, but I can understand Neytiri and Took getting captured in the final battle with Courage taking the comms and telling Jake he has them. I can understand that. The kids calling out to Eywa is very similar to the ending of the first Avatar movie, but the way it's handled is very different, and it just feels bigger in scale. You've got the sea creatures, and it's such an important character moment for Kiri that I do think it stands out as its own thing, but I still understand some complaints. The whale hunting scene is important to establish how Garvin is starting to have doubts about his work. You've got Courage destroying another village, but to show you that his way doesn't work, and Wang's way does work. Jake uniting all the tribes to help people is very similar to the ending of the first movie, but that's kind of the point. It's him becoming Tawak Matu again. He put that life away so he could focus on becoming a husband and father, and his realization over the past two movies is you can't separate it. This is who you are, and you've got to embrace it. So I still felt like it was a very satisfying moment. And then the big one is the final battle is the final battles of Avatar 1 and 2 put together. And I think putting them together does make it feel fresh and new. And I don't know, the nighttime aesthetic adds a lot to it. The magnetic field definitely makes it feel different. You know, like, it doesn't really hinder too much on the Tolkiens attacking the ships or those crab vehicles. I feel like they found a way to make it feel different, but I still understand the complaints. So, some moments can feel repetitive, but saying the entire movie is just a rehash is just objectively false. I feel like thematically, this movie is doing lots differently. It builds off the second movie in a way that really allows it to stand out, and the character work is definitely different. So, yeah, and speaking of which, let's begin my spoiler filled thoughts. And I do want to talk about the cast again because Sam Worthington gives one of my favorite performances of the year here. Jake Sully has become a favorite character of mine, and I like how we see him deal with his grief by just shutting down, not talking about it, and kind of just doing his own thing. It's Jake relying on his more human side on dealing with everything. But I like how throughout the movie he has these talks with Courage about Ewell, and in a way, those moments bring his faith back. And I like how he becomes Tawak Mator again by the end. Zoe Saldana deals with the grief in the opposite way, where she becomes even more faithful and she prays more, and she's still struggling. I like how this movie leans into the idea that she's kind of a bigot, and throughout this movie, she gets beaten down time and time again. But throughout, she starts to realize what else is important to her, how her family matters, and by the end, she becomes a better person as a result. Jake brings out the best of her, she brings out the best in Jake, and together, they're just one of the best movie couples. Sigourney Weaver as Kiwi is fantastic, and I love how it explores her origins and how she just wants to feel connected to Ewell. And we've got that scene where she gives Spider his gift, and I really do like where she ends up by the end of this movie. Britton Dalton is phenomenal here. I like how he's the narrator and he carries this movie incredibly well. He brings a different energy, but a necessary one, and I just love how the movie begins and he's just like, I killed my brother. And the way he deals with that guilt throughout, and the way he ends up proving himself and becomes a stronger character by the end is incredibly well done. Stephen Lang is phenomenal here. Like, this might be my favorite performance of the year. Because, yes, it's Courage again, but he's funnier, he has more to work with, and I love how his story is a dark, twisted version of Jake Sully's story. You've got Una Chaplin, who is just phenomenal as Varang. She brings a different, seductive, evil energy, which feels very fresh and new. You've got Trinity Jolie Bliss as Took, who does a really great job. She brings lots of innocence here. Jack Champion as Spider, I said it before and I'll say it again. He's good. I like his performance. He sticks out like a sore thumb, but in a way that feels very intentional. And I thought he did a good job. You know, he has lots to do and he's always convincing. Bailey Bass as Tisraya. I love this character and I love her relationship with Lorak, but I also love how through him, she also learns to stand up for herself. Kate Winslet has more to do here, and I thought she did a really good job. Cliff Curtis is more in the background, but I still really like him. Joe David Moore as Norm, and Giovanni Ribisi. It's always nice to see those two characters again. Eddie Falco's good. Brandon Kyle and Jamon Kamon. Honestly, everyone does a fantastic job. This is probably my favorite movie ensemble of the year. And I love how this is a movie about grief and guilt and faith. And those are the elements that allows this movie to stand out as its own thing. You keep saying it's a rehash of Avatar 2. Okay, great. Tell me, when on Avatar 2 is it about this family that's falling apart and how characters are trying to move forward ahead from grief? Like, at its core, that is this movie. And I love how Natiri's death just looms over every moment. From the opening scene, which is just phenomenal. It reminds you of the spectacle, but it reminds you of what has been lost and how Loak is dealing with it. And it's such a powerful way to begin this movie. We got the scene of Jake and Neytiri arguing. And by the way, I love how Neytiri doesn't argue against her husband in public, but Jake's just like, well, where was Awa when our son died, pretty much? And Neytiri's just like, stop, I can't be having those thoughts. All I have right now is my faith. I'm a stranger in a strange land. This is all I got. And Jake reminds her, you've got us. And I found that to be a really powerful scene. But one of the most heartbreaking scenes here is when Loak and Jake are arguing, and Jake says, maybe if you just listened, your brother would still be... And he stops himself. And Loak starts breaking down in tears, and he's just like, it wasn't my fault. That scene just shakes me up. And how Neytiri tells Jake he needs to fix things with Loak because he might lose another son. And then we immediately see Loak about to kill himself. And I like the fact that this movie was willing to go to those dark places. Grief isn't pretty, it's difficult, it's harsh, it's just awful, but it's so necessary to tell this story. I also do like how this is a movie about race and culture. I love the one conversation that Neytiri and Jake have about the pink skins, about how Neytiri hates them all. And Jake's just like, you had to choose between the pink skins and your family once, remember? And you chose the pink skins. And then he asks, I might look like this, but underneath, I will always be human. Do you hate your kids? Whenever they make a mistake, is it the human side of things? Like, I'm sorry, I keep hearing bad things about the writing. How? This scene, this argument is so well done. It really is. And I also love how there's a big discussion of what's the best way to deal with Spider. And at first, Jake's like, I don't know. And Neytiri's like, we should kill him. And at an eventual point, Jake's just like, yeah, we need to kill him. And I couldn't believe what I was watching. We had the main character, the hero of the story, about to kill one of his kids. Holy shit. That whole scene is just so powerful, and Neytiri's washing the blood off and she sees the blood in her hands and she realizes this isn't the way. And then Jake and Spider, Spider even asks him, do you still love me, Dad? And Jake says, with all my heart. And afterwards they have a hug, and even Neytiri tells Spider that she sees him. I just found it to be so incredibly effective. It really is. And really at the end of the day, this is a movie about what's the best way to move forward in wartime. Should you be a peacekeeper or a warrior? And pretty much this movie lands on you should protect those you love and kill those who you hate. And I kind of like that approach. I also like how throughout this movie we see that guns can truly corrupt one's soul, and how Loak is only able to almost do that one thing, because he had a gun. And I also like how throughout the movie, Loak and Tisraya are trying to rebuild Neytiri's bow, which is really representative of the characters and how they're broken, but they can heal in time. So yeah, I really do think there's lots of great character work and lots of thematic depth to this story, and the world building is once again just terrific. I love the addition of the main Kron and how they cut off people's cues. I love how they've got a home by the volcano. I love how Varang attaches her cue to other people's. Like, yeah, it's really dark stuff, and I also love that one scene of the suicide bomber just taking down the Wind Trader ship. It's so awesome and just so cool. And I do love the Wind Traders and how the ships look like giant jellyfishes. I like the Tolkien courtroom scene and how he loses his flippers as a gravel. I love how we do see Eywa, which by the way was such a ballsy decision. Like, you're really going to show us the goddess of Pandora? That could go wrong so quickly, but they nailed it. That is such a terrific moment. Well, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I also like some of the underwater creatures here, like the squids. I also think the action is indeed thrilling, and I love how the characters get injured. They get shot. Everybody feels mortal, and because of that, the stakes feel higher as a result. We also got a couple people who do die in Warnow and Watco. And the human compound scene is just so thrilling and so exciting. The climax, like I said, I love it. That magnetic field scene is just so cool to look at, and it just makes for really great action. And I kind of like how that forest chase early on feels like the Mel Gibson's movie Apocalypto. So, like, once again, the action definitely does stand out, and it also manages to be a pretty funny movie at points. Like I said earlier, Stephen Lang is so funny here, and some of his line delivery is just pitch perfect. I love it when Varang cuts him on the chest and he's just like, "Hey, that's not very nice." Or when Varang asks him, "How would you like to be my slave?" "Sounds like a fun weekend." Oh, when "I see you." "Damn right you do." He just has this level of confidence, and I love the way that comes through. I love it when he's talking to Jake Sully and they're making a deal, and he's just like, "Do you want to pinky it?" I love it when he goes in the meeting room and he's just covered in the Ash people makeup. It's just really jarring for the character. He even has a, well, this is awkward, joke that actually lands. There's also one scene where Parker runs into the meeting room in his underwear. There are scenes where I laughed. And I feel like we kind of take the visuals in these movies for granted. Like, everybody talks about how beautiful they look, but holy shit, it is just a work of art from beginning to end. Every frame looks as perfect as possible. The cinematography is top notch. The colors really stand out. I love how certain things glow in the dark. It's just, I can't exaggerate enough just how great this movie looks. It is one of the best looking movies ever made. And I say that without any hesitation. And there's even this one scene where, actually it's Coach in Varang's tent, and he's some stuff, and everything looks so trippy and weird, and I love that moment. The sound design is fantastic here. I love that one scene of Neytiri shooting the bomb arrows, and just with each explosion, you feel the impact. What else? I love how often this movie cuts to black. Like, I believe it happens 3 times. When Took is captured at the end, when Jake Sully is captured, and after Varang gets her weapons. It's just a way to sell you on the dramatic weight of everything. The movie's also 3 hours and 15 minutes, and it flies by. It is such an easy movie to watch, and in fact, if I had any negatives, it's that I wish this movie was longer. I wish we had more of the McCrane clan. I wish we had more of the Wind Traders. And I do wish we saw a bit of the fallout from the climax. Just a bit. With Wonao and Watko dying, it would have been nice to see some people grieving and just dealing with the fallout. But I still really like the note this movie ends on. And there are some truly terrific moments. Like, I love that one scene where Jake is sliding down the Wind Trader's ship. I love that one scene where Jake Sully gets taken and he tells Neytiri, whatever you do, do not raise your bow. And just to the way he negotiates, and they might need Neytiri, but then everybody's willing to fight back, and just that scene is so well written. And I love how when everybody else backs off, Neytiri is still standing and she wants to shoot Courage, and she just doesn't. It's a really powerful moment, and I love how throughout Way of Water, Courage is kind of traumatized by Neytiri's arrows, but in that scene, it's just kind of, I'm over it. A really great small character moment there. I also love the scene early on where the kids are writing the token. It just captures that sense of awe and wonder. I love how Mick dies getting dragged to the bottom of the ocean. I love the scene where Kiri is trying to see Eywa and Spider and Took join in and help her. Definitely reminds me of the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's still a fantastic moment that I found to be very emotional. And like I said, like, seeing Eywa is such... It's a decision that could have gone wrong, but they nailed it. I think Prair's birth scene is a really terrific moment, and how Wonao only lets go after Neytiri agrees to watch after him. I love the scene where Coach visits Jake in the human compound and they start speaking Na'vi to each other. I love the scene of when Spider protects Jake because they can't shoot him. And I love the scene of Loak just traveling in the storm. Like, man, this movie just really does it for me. Like, once again, I understand how some moments might feel repetitive to some people, but to say it's a rehash is just objectively false. The way this movie handles grief and culture and race and guilt and faith just makes it feel like its own thing entirely. The character work here is top notch. I love these characters and their arcs are incredibly convincing. I love the romance between Jake and Neytiri, and I love the romance between Loak and Titsrea. And I know there's some issues people have with it, but Spider and Kiri is a well done romance. I love so many moments in this movie. I find it to be very emotional. I find it to be very powerful. I find it to be very entertaining and thrilling and fun, and it just captures a sense of awe and wonder. It's incredibly well directed. I love the music by Simon Franklin. I don't give out 10s out of 10s willy-nilly. but this movie owns it, and yeah, it is in my top 10 movies of all time. I love it to that level. And I've seen it twice, and I can't wait to see it again and again. But Avatar 4 and 5, is it going to happen? Yeah, I think so. I know James Cameron wants to make that Hiroshima movie, but like, how old is Stephen Lang? Stephen Lang, and even Sigourney Weaver, how old are they? Sorry, just give me one moment. Okay, Stephen Lang is 73, Sigourney Weaver is 76. Look, I know this sounds dark, but if he wants to make Avatar 4 and 5, they should be his next movie. Or at the very least, I can imagine a reality where he films them, and then he does Hiroshima, and then he also works on the visual effects in his meantime. I could see that being a reality, but he needs to shoot them next. And I do think it's going to happen. These movies make bank. This movie, yes, it will make bank. And, yeah. So, what do I want from Avatar 4 and 5? Well, number one, for them to happen as soon as possible. Number two, look, I love these first three movies, but I feel like everything with the forest and water environments have been done. So, I do think we need to... I saw some concept art of the snowy mountains and the desert, and, it'd be cool to have a fight scene in a volcano. And I feel like they should go into different environments. I believe the rumor is they're going back to Earth for Avatar 5, so I'd be down for that. And yeah, I would say that's the main thing. Varang is still alive at the end of this movie, so I would love it for her to come back. I think she is such a great villain, and I would like to see where they take her. Courage, is he dead? Is he alive? I thought he was dead after my first viewing, but now, I think he's alive. And I understand some people's complaints are like, oh, it's going to be humans versus Na'vi again. I get it, but, as long as they keep delivering on the spectacle, I'm okay with it. Courage, they have to continue his growth. That is what allows him to feel fresh as a villain. So, yeah, that's the primary things I want. I just want more of what I love, along with a bunch of new stuff. And I do think it should just be 2 more movies, and then that's it. Also, isn't Avatar 4 like 33% filmed? So it must begin soon after the third one, and then there must be a big time jump. So I'd be very curious to see what they do. And also, just going to Earth is such a great move, because then Jake Sully can he'll go back to Earth, but he doesn't belong anymore, and it could have cool Blade Runner-esque visuals. Yeah, they're gonna happen, and I can't wait to eventually get Avatar 4 and 5. And yeah, so that's my spoiler-filled thoughts on Avatar 3. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin out.